there came, first of all, there came a concept of separation of power. Concept of separation of power. In modern days, this concept came more prominently in the writings of a French scholar called Montesquieu. French philosopher also, you can say, Montesquieu. And according to Montesquieu, king enjoyed legislative, executive, and judicial powers. King enjoyed legislative, executive, judicial power. King became despot. This is despotic kingship. What is despot king? In the words of the king is law. King is accountable to us none. King can make any decision. Justice gets periled under the autocratic substances of the king. The king is everything. King is state, king is law, king is justice. And king becomes, when king has such an extensive, unlimited power, king becomes oppressive, anti-people, power monger. So that king becomes a despotic king. Why? Because king has legislative, judicial, executive power. Plus this, all the three power concentrated has many dangers. Ultimately, state cannot survive. State's survival, state's existence comes to question, because state does not enjoy the moral placing to rule. So moral element or legitimacy state loses. This idea, Montesquieu said that the legislative, judicial, executive power, when it comes to king becomes despot, and this despotic king becomes oppressive, torturous, autocratic. Therefore, what should be done? This power which remains with one person, power, law-making power, law executive power, adjudicative power, means judicial power, all in one person, separated. So idea came that there must be separation of power, and legislative, executive, and judicial, three branches of government should be created. This separation of power. So separation of power means there should be separate branches of government for legislative purpose, executive purpose, and judicial purpose. It is believed that sometimes, like you see the system of governance in case of India, or go to England, go to France, in some other parts of the world, although most of the countries you will find that the separation of power is not so clear cut. That means we find legislative, executive are the same people. Like in case of India, we have member of parliament, they are legislature, and member of parliament are the executive, means ministers. So member of parliaments are MPs are legislature, they participate in the law making process. They are executive, they become minister. So minister heads a ministry or department, so he controls administration under his leadership. He is the supreme person in the ministry department. Sorry, executive orders flow from him. So minister MP, legislature MP. That is absence of clear-cut separation of power in case of India. You go to America, you will find that clear-cut separation is there. In case of America, the executives like president, his secretary of state, they are not the member of either Senate or House of Representatives. Means they are not the member of legislature. They are not the member of American Parliament. Clear? So in case of America, clear-cut separation is found. In case of India, it's not there. However, in most of the countries, except few exceptions are there, in most of the countries we find the judiciary to be clearly separate, it as neutral, separate, independent. Judiciary is probably more neutral than, more separate than legislature executive relationship. Legislature and executive may be same, separation is less, but judiciary is separate completely. We have exception in case of England, like in England the House of Lords used to be, before 1999 2000, House of Lords used to be the highest court of appeal. Like we have highest court of appeal is Supreme Court in India. In case of England, UK, earlier few years back, House of Lords was the highest court of appeal. House of Lords was the upper house of parliament in England. In England we had English Parliament had House of Commons and House of Lords. House of Commons is like Lok Sabha of India, and House of Lords is like Rajya Sabha of India. So House of Lords perform judicial functions. That is few exceptions we find in the world. Generally judiciary is completely separate, or you can say more separate than relationship of legislature executive, and they are neutral because they are not part of any these two organs, and they are kept independent. Now what was there in mind of Montesquieu? Montesquieu wanted separation of power, that means clear-cut separation of power. And he also advocated, he was not favoring democratic government like Rousseau wanted. Rousseau wanted a republic for France. Rousseau was a French philosopher. So Rousseau, like philosopher, they wanted that there must be democracy or republican form of government, elected head of the state. But Montesquieu did not suggest that there must be republican government, but he suggested constitutional monarchy. Monarch or king should give constitution to people, and he should rule based on that constitution. constitution should contain some law-making body. That means legislature. Monarch should perform executive function without much intervention into legislation. And there must be a separate judicial body, that judiciary, neutral. Why judiciary should be neutral? We will discuss about it. The significance of independence of judiciary, we'll talk about it. So, Montesquieu perceived 3 different organs of government, out of which judiciary having a special position. And why he found that a king with all the 3 powers combined becomes despot, an oppressive ruler. Word of the king is the law, and king can change his words and mind for different people. And why this idea separation of power comes then? Basically, because separation of power provides for the existence of the principle of natural justice. So one thing, Montesquieu wanted separation of power because king will not remain despot. So there must be a monarch who is ruling as per constitution, achieving the welfare of the people. For this, separation of power is required. It's a one reason Montesquieu suggested. Second thing, special position of judiciary will help in achievement of the principles of natural justice, which was prevalent in the Roman philosophy very early.